Hello everybody, I am Dr. Urja Ranjan Sinha, Assistant Professor of English, D.P. Vipra College, Bilaspur. Today I am going to deal with Oscar Wilde's short story, The Happy Prince. But before I start the story, let me give you the brief description about the author. Oscar Wilde's full name was Oscar Fingal O'Flaherty Wills Wilde. He was born in Dublin on 16th October 1854 and died on 30th November 1900. He was an Anglo-Irish poet, playwright, critic and a novelist. He was one of the greatest English poets of the Victorian era, an era which was roughly the reign of period of Queen Victoria. And as we all know that Victorian age was an age of conflict between hope and despair, science and faith, the spiritual and the material, thought and feeling, etc. This age was also an age of compromise, and the writers of this age were inspired by a sense of social responsibility and concern for humanity. And their writings were preeminently didactic and purposeful also. In the writings of Oscar Wilde, we find the impact of the age. He has written total in all one novel, 9 plays, numerous poems, short stories and essays. He became renowned in early 1890s, and some of his notable works are The Picture of Dorian Gray, Lady Windermere's Fan, The Importance of Being Earnest, The Happy Prince, and the stories De Profundis, etc. Now, let me give you the brief introduction about The Happy Prince. This is story, The Happy Prince, who while living was really very happy. He was so happy that he did not know what misery or suffering is. It is only after when he dies he came to know about the human suffering. And it is very interesting to us to remind that there is the story of Lord Buddha, which is similar to the story of the prince. The only difference between the two stories being is that the one story of Lord Buddha, the prince comes out of his palace one day and comes across an old man, a sick person, and the death of an individual, and having an idea of the human suffering, he leaves the palace. But here in the Happy Prince, the prince first dies and then he comes to know about the human suffering. The princes of both the stories are compassionate and feel so much concern about human suffering that they do what they can to mitigate suffering. Doing service to humankind is a concept which significantly contributes to the theme of the story. Now let us narrate the story of Happy Prince, which was written by Oscar Wilde in 1888. It actually got published in 1888. It is actually a fairy tale which proceeds the participation of the unreal characters, the characters like fairies, giants, witches, talking animals, imaginary world, etc. The idea is to develop in the suffering individuals to look at life as not so bad as it really or actually is. The attitude of cheerful endurance and good humor can bring people together even as they may belong to different levels of society. It was considered to be one of the finest stories of Oscar Wilde. The story has two imaginary characters, a talking swallow and a talking statue of a happy prince. Now let us start the text, but I am not going to read out the whole of the text. I am just giving out the important portions so that you get an idea about the story. The Happy Prince, written by Oscar Wilde. High above the city, on a tall column, stood the statue of a happy prince. He was gilded all over with thin leaves of fine gold. For eyes he had two bright sapphires, and large red ruby glowed on his sword hilt. So on the great heights, the statue of a happy prince was there. His feet were fastened on the with the pedestal, and the whole body was covered with the gold. And the two bright sapphires were studded in his eyes, and a large red ruby could be seen on the sword hilt. Now, this prince was admired by most of the passers by, as the happiness could always be seen on the face of the happy prince. Then, what happens one night? There flew over the city a little swallow. His friends had gone away to Egypt 6 weeks before, but he had stayed behind, for he was in love with the most beautiful reed. He had met her early in the spring as he was flying down the river after a big yellow moth, and had been so attracted by her slender waist that he had stopped to talk to her. Totally imaginary. Just think how a swallow can be in love with a reed. But this happens here as it's a fairy tale. It is ridiculous attachment, twittered the other swallows. Other swallows also commented on this thing. And but what happens after some time, this swallow got tired of his lady love, and he, along with his friends, as his friends had already moved towards Egypt, he too had decided that he should also go to Egypt. "I'll put up there," he cried. "It is a fine position with plenty of fresh air." So he alighted just between the feet of the happy prince. Now what happened? As he flew, he saw a tall statue, and he stayed there just for a night at the feet of the happy prince. "I have golden bedroom," he said softly to himself as he looked around, and he prepared to go to sleep. But just as he was putting his head under his wing, a large drop of water fell on him. "What a curious thing!" he cried. "There is not a single cloud in the sky. The stars are quite clear and bright, yet it is raining." So it was really quite odd for the swallow that the sky was totally clear and still it's raining. Then what happened? After some time, the other drop fell. "What is the use of a statue if it cannot keep the rain off?" he said. "I must look for a good chimney pot," and determined to fly away. He just wanted to fly towards Egypt. But before he had opened his wings, a third drop fell. And he looked up and saw. What did he see? The eyes of the happy prince were filled with tears, and tears were running down his golden cheeks. His face was so beautiful in the moonlight that the little swallow was filled with pity. So the swallow was totally dumbfounded to see such a sight, that the statue of a happy prince was crying, was weeping. But as his heart was filled with pity, he just stayed there, and he asked the happy prince the reason for his weeping. "When I was alive and had a human heart," answered the statue, "I did not know what tears were. But I lived in the palace of Sans Souci, where sorrow is not allowed to enter in the daytime. I played with my companions in the garden, and in the evening I led the dance in the great hall. Round the garden ran a very lofty wall, but I never cared to ask what lay beyond it. Everything about me was so beautiful. My courtiers called me the happy prince, and happy indeed I was. If pleasure be happiness, so I lived and so I died. And now that I am dead, they have set me here so high that I can see all the ugliness and all the misery of my city, and though my heart is made of lead, yet I cannot choose but weep." Just see. The prince replies to the swallow and tells him about himself. He tells that he was totally unaware of any kind of sorrow or suffering when he was alive. He had led a very comfortable and a very happy life when he was alive. But as when he is dead now, and he has been placed to the great heights by his counselors, he could see from that great height that what is pain or the misery or the ugliness of his city. When he saw the pain and agony of the downtrodden, his heart was filled with pain and he was totally heartbroken. The happy prince told the swallow that he wants to help the poor and the needy. So far away, continued the statue in a low musical voice. Far away in a little street, there is a poor house. One of the windows is open, and through if it I can see a woman seated at a table. Her face is thin and worn, and she has coarse red hands, all pricked by the needle, for she is seamstress. She used to sew clothes. She is embroidering passion flowers on a satin gown for the loveliest of the queen's maids of honor to wear at the next court ball. In a bed in the corner of the room, her little boy is lying ill. He has a fever and he is asking for oranges. His mother has nothing to give him but river water, so he is crying, "Swallow, swallow, little swallow, will you not bring her the ruby out of my sword hilt? My feet are fastened to this pedestal and I cannot move." Just see the helplessness of the happy prince. He couldn't move as his feet is been fastened by the pedestal. So he asked the swallow to help. They stay there for a night and just help. "I am waited for in Egypt," said the swallow. Swallow had to go to Egypt. So he just replied, "I am waited for Egypt because the other maids were waiting for him." "Swallow, swallow, little swallow," said the prince, "will you not stay with me for one night and be my messenger? The boy is so thirsty and the mother is so sad." Just see the humble request of the happy prince to the swallow. But happy prince looked so sad. "But I will stay with you one night and be your messenger." The swallow got ready to stay with happy prince, and he was ready to help the happy prince. "Thank you, little swallow," said the prince. So the swallow picked out the great ruby from the prince's sword and flew away within his beak over the roofs of the roofs of the town. He gave that ruby to the seamstress. Seamstress was quite happy to get that. Then the swallow flew back to the happy prince and told him what he had done. "It is curious," he remarked, "but I feel quite warm now, although it is so cold." "That is because you have done a good action," said the prince. And the little swallow began to think, and then he fell asleep. Thinking always made him sleepy. Then what happened? "Tonight I go to Egypt," said the swallow. The next day he had to go to Egypt once again. "Swallow, swallow, little swallow," said the prince, "will you not stay with me one night longer?" That was again a request comes from the prince's end to a swallow. "I am waited for in Egypt," answered the swallow. "Swallow, swallow, little swallow," said the prince, "far away across the city I see a young man in a garret. He is leaning over a desk covered with papers, and in a tumbler by his side there is a bunch of withered violets. His hair is brown and crisp, and his lips are red as pomegranate, and he has large and dreamy eyes. He is trying to finish a play for the director of the theatre, but he is too cold to write any more. There is no fire in the grate, and hunger has made him faint." So he could see the other person, that was a young boy, and he was also poor. He doesn't have that much of money that he could afford to buy some of the woods for the grate. "I will wait with you one night longer," said the swallow, who really had a good heart. "Shall I take him another ruby?" "Alas, I don't have any ruby now," said the prince. "My eyes are all that I have left. They are made of rare sapphires. Pluck out one of them and take it to him." "Dear prince," said the swallow, I cannot do that," and began to weep. Swallow, swallow, little swallow, said the prince, do as I command you. So the swallow plucked out the prince's eye and just delivered that sapphire, one of the sapphires of the eyes, to the young man. In this way, the prince made the young man happy. I am come to bid you goodbye now. That the swallow, again he had to go to Egypt. So he said that he had gone there to say goodbye to the prince. Again, just see the request. Swallow, swallow, little swallow, said the prince, will you not stay with me one night longer? It is winter, answered the swallow, and the chill snow will soon be here. In the square below, said the happy prince, there stands a little match girl. She has let her matches fall in the gutter, and they are all spoiled. Her father will beat her if she does not bring home some money, and she is crying. She has no shoes, no stockings, and her little head is bare. Pluck out my other eye and give it to her, and her father will not beat her. I will stay with you one night longer, said the swallow, but I cannot pick out your eye. You would be quite blind then. Swallow, swallow, little swallow, said the prince, do as I command you. So he plucked out Princess' other eye and darted down with it. He swooped past the match girl and slipped the jewel into the palm of her hand. So in this way, happy prince, when he saw this match girl, pity was there in his heart and he was very soft hearted. He just gave the other sapphire of his eye to that girl just to help her, just to make her laugh, just to make her happy. Then the swallow came back to the prince. You are blind now, he said, so I will stay with you always. That was the decision of a swallow, that he wanted to stay with the prince forever. He just did not want to go to Egypt. No, little swallow, said the poor prince, you must go away to Egypt. I will stay with you always, said the swallow, and he slept at the prince's feet. All the next day he sat on prince's shoulders and told him stories of what he had seen in strange lands. Dear little swallow, said the prince, you tell me of marvelous things, but more marvelous than anything is the suffering of men and of women. There is no mystery so great as misery. Fly over my city, little swallow, and tell me what you see there. So the swallow flew over the great city and saw the rich making merry in their beautiful houses, while the beggars were sitting at the gates. He flew into the dark lanes and saw the white faces of starving children looking out listlessly at the black streets. Under the archway of a bridge, two little boys were lying in one another's arms to try to keep themselves warm. How hungry we are, they said. You must not lie here, shouted the watchman, and they wandered out into the rain. Then he flew back and told the prince what he had seen. I am covered with fine gold, said the prince. You must take it off leaf by leaf and give it to my poor. The living always think that gold had made them happy. So leaf after leaf of the fine gold the swallow picked off, till the happy prince looked quite dull and grey. Leaf after leaf of the fine gold he brought to the poor, and the children's faces grew rosier, and they laughed and played games in the street. We have bread now, they cried. So, on hearing the stories of the needy ones, the happy prince helped all of them by giving the gold covering of his statue and make each one happy. Then the snow came, and after the snow came the frost. The poor little swallow grew colder and colder, but he would not leave the prince. He loved him so well. But at last he knew that he was going to die. It is not in Egypt that I am going to die, said the swallow. I am going to the house of death. Death is the brother of sleep, is it not? He knew very well that it is too cold now and it's very difficult for him to survive in such a cold weather. So he says that, the swallow told the prince that I am going to leave you forever. At the moment, and he kissed the happy prince on the lips and fell down dead at his feet. Just then, at that particular moment, what happened? Let us see. At that moment, a curious crack sounded inside the statue, as if something had broken. The fact is that the laden heart had snapped right into two. Snap means that it had broken into two parts. It certainly was a dreadful hard frost. Early in the next morning, the mayor was walking in the square below in company with the town councillors. As they passed the column, he looked up the statue. Dear me, how shabby the happy prince looks, he said. So, after some time, when they all saw that the statue of the happy prince has totally become very ugly, so they all pulled down the statue of the happy prince. It is no longer beautiful and is of no longer useful. It should be melted into the furnace. Then they melted the statue in a furnace, and the mayor held a meeting of the corporation to decide what was to be done with the metal. We must have another statue, of course. But what a strange thing happened there, that the overseer of the workmen at the foundry, this broken lead heart will not melt in the furnace. As we all know that lead is a good, or copper is a good conductor of heat. So that did not melt in the furnace. We must throw it away. So they threw it on a dust heap where the dead swallow was also lying. Now, this the last it's going to be the last, and just four lines are so important. It seems as if the story has a tragic end, but in a fairy tale it is a condition that the end of the story should be happy. So here also, as it is a fairy tale, the last four lines are beautiful. Bring me the two most precious things in the city, said God to one of his angels. And the angel brought him the laden heart and the dead bird. Now, why these two things were so precious to God? God was seeing all the things from heaven. So he sent his angel to bring these two important to the precious things to, to heaven. And they were precious. Why they were precious? Because they both, either the swallow or the heart of the happy prince, both of them, they have sacrificed their lives to help the poor and the needy ones. So you have rightly chosen, said the God. You have rightly chosen. That both of them, they had a choice what to choose. So they chose the right thing. What was the right thing? That they helped and sacrificed their lives for the poor. And the real beauty and happiness lies in the good actions, charity, sacrifice, compassion. So, whereas the worldly possessions can bring only temporary happiness. So, you have rightly chosen, said the God. For in my garden of paradise, this little bird shall sing for evermore, and in my city of gold, the happy prince shall praise me. When he asked the angel to bring these two precious things to heaven, God was very happy with them. As he was very happy, as a reward, he just announced for their good deeds that these two things are going to be in heaven forever. The swallow is going to sing in the garden of paradise forever, and the prince is going to praise him forever. So this was the story of Happy Prince, and we have already evaluated it critically also, and very soon I'll be with the other story of Oscar Wilde. Till then, goodbye and stay at home, stay safe. Thank you.